Welcome everyone to Quantum London. This is our webinar number 15, and we have another super interesting session tonight. But before we start, let me just introduce who Quantum London is and what we do for those people who are new to this group. We are a community of people that are passionate about technology, very curious, and we are trying to unravel what the business impacts of quantum computing and quantum technologies will be for our businesses. So there is plenty of great groups out there, but we pride ourselves from being friendly bunch of people. Also, there is a no questions. Those questions that are maybe answered to very technical forums. These are the ones we're trying to answer. Again, is our business perspective we want to bring in, and we do this in different ways. So we bring in experts from the field, like we are doing tonight in the webinars. We also have some more informal conversations around table. Sometimes they're open, sometimes they're focused on specific topics. And also we run a coding community for those people who want to get their hands dirty. So stick to until the end. And Anahita, who is one of the co-leaders of Quantum London, will give us a brief overview of what's coming next. So please do stay with us until the end of the session. So tonight we have Dr. Celia Yeung and Dr. Rupesh Srivastava from the Quantum Computing Simulation Hub. So the QCS Hub is a part of the UK national program to develop quantum technology, and they're trying to bring in academy and the industry together when it comes to quantum. They will give us an overview of what they're trying to achieve within the hub, but also with the focus on the topic of building a sustainable and inclusive workforce. So this is something which is important in every industry, potentially even more so in the quantum space, where it's a space which is just forming. So it's very important that we start discussing those topics very early on. In terms of the logistics for tonight, if you've been here before, there is the chat on the left-hand side of your screen. Feel free to ask questions there, and we'll try to answer with the help of Celia and Rupesh as many as possible of those. And we will be pausing a couple of times throughout the talk. So again, feel free to post your questions, and we'll answer as many as possible as we go along when we stop. Also, if you miss a portion of it, you want to go back to it, we'll be recording the event tonight and will be posted on our YouTube channel, and you will have then the chance to go back and to it and view it again. And well done everyone who is presenting themselves in the chat where they come from. This is our tradition. We always ask people where they're from. It's a nice way to understand where our audience is based, and a way to kick off the introduction. So without any further ado, I will hand over to Celia and Rupesh, who will be leading us through their talk. Over to you.
Okey-doke. So let's see, sharing my screen. Oh, no, you still, yes, want to take over, that's right. Okay. Just bear with me.
In the meantime, welcome everybody. It's really great to see you all, and it's really great to see where you're coming from all over the world. My name is Rupesh Srivastava. I'm a colleague of Celia, and we work in the user engagement team. And our mission really is to develop and nurture the UK quantum computing ecosystem for UK prosperity. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Celia to take us through the presentations, and I'll be around in the chat and also to answer questions. Thank you.
Okay, so hopefully everyone can see that. And away we go. So thank you for having me, Quantum London. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all those who've tuned in. I'm Celia Yeung. I'm part of the user engagement team for the Quantum Computing and Simulation Hub. So tonight I'll briefly run through my history and how I became part of the quantum workforce, I'll share a little bit about what we do in the Quantum Computing and Simulation Hub and how we address diversity and inclusion in our organization. So firstly, I have a background in physics, with the disclaimer that I've got my master's over a decade ago, so I'm not at all an expert in the quantum field. So kindly ask no technical questions. I completed my PhD in electrical engineering in 2013. And since then, I've spent a lot of time in the higher education and funding sector, trying to get an appreciation of how the system works and how we can improve it. So before I joined the QCS Hub, I worked for EPSRC, which is the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council. The organisation is part of UKRI, which is the UK's largest public funding organisation for research and innovation. Excuse me. And there I contributed to shaping the research landscape and distributed funding for projects, particularly in the energy sector. So with these skills developed at Research Council, I took a role at the University of Oxford as a research development manager. And here I helped researchers secure funding for major projects and negotiate their research contracts. At the moment, I have the pleasure of working with a multi-talented, multidisciplinary group of individuals and organizations who look to accelerate the progress of quantum computing, both nationally and internationally. So, what is or who is the Quantum Computing and Simulation Hub? The QCS Hub is part of the UK's National Quantum Technologies Programme, which began in 2013. The programme is a coherent initiative which brings together academia, industry, and the wider community to advance technologies, exploit its applications, and enable the UK to maintain a world-leading position in the emerging field of quantum. The programme is delivered by the EPSRC, Innovate UK, STFC, KTN, DSTL, BAYS, NPL, GCHQ, and the National Cyber Security Centre. So you can see that there's been a significant investment into the programme. You can get a feel for the size and its importance. So since 2013, there has been over £1 billion worth of investment into a 10-year programme. So it started with 4 hubs in phase 1, one in quantum imaging based in Glasgow, one in quantum communication based in York, one in quantum sensors and timing that's based in Birmingham, and we have our hub that specialises in quantum computing and simulation, and we're based in Oxford. It's worth noting that although the HQs for each of these hubs are geographically based in one location, each of the hubs are composed of a consortium of academic institutions and industrial partnerships. So for us in phase 1, our hub was called NKIT, the Network Quantum Information Technologies Hub, and we ran from 2014 to 2019. We were formed of 9 universities and more than 20 companies, with the goal of developing technologies that would contribute to a universal fault-tolerant quantum computer. By the end of phase 2, NKIT had made its mark on the quantum computing sector by bringing together skills and knowledge within the whole community. And we span out 7 companies and drove quantum readiness in the UK. We'd built unique superconducting qubit architectures in our labs and developed blind, quantum computing verification concepts. And the hub also had success in breaking 4 world records, including the development of a photonically networked ion-trapped architecture that enabled the highest combination of fidelity and speed across network-based physical systems at any one time. So these are all achievements that we're very proud of. I think I can get a laser pointer on here. So we've just got a few of them listed here. In phase 2 of the national programme, we saw the renewal of the 4 hubs, and there was an announcement for the National Quantum Computing Centre, the NQCC. And the centre is a £93 million bricks and mortar investment, which is currently being built in Harwell, Oxfordshire. Its completion is due at the end of 2023. And its primary purpose is to fill a key gap in the research and innovation landscape by providing the capability to address challenges of scaling quantum computing technologies. So I think in the first 5 years, the NQCC intends on focusing on noisy intermediate scale quantum machines, or NISQ machine. They want to be able to demonstrate the technology, provide access to developers so they have a greater assurance that it's going to work, and promote a strong UK-based quantum computing supply chain. From there, the efforts will be focused towards developing a fully scalable, universal fault-tolerant quantum computer, where the NQCC will play a key part in the wider UK quantum computing landscape and contribute to the growth of the UK's quantum economy. For us in phase 2, MKIT was rebranded as the Quantum Computing and Simulation Hub, QCS Hub, where we continue to develop quantum computing technologies with the intention of being able to scale them. We foster relationships with the wider community to ensure the UK is quantum literate and that they are able to make informed decisions about how they adopt or adapt to quantum technologies. Currently, our hub consists of 17 universities that are working in partnership with over 25 commercial, governmental, and academic organizations worldwide. So it's quite a few of us in the hub. It's nice to have a lot of participation. Our scientific teams investigate the full stack, that is both hardware and software. Within hardware, we have work packages that include ion trap processors, superconductors, photonics, etc. And we believe that the technologies listed here have a role to play in the future, albeit on different timescales. So some are more mature than others. And this is why we've invested in them more, because we don't know who might be a clear winner yet in terms of technology. On the software side, we have specialists in verification, algorithms, applications, which allow us to work towards simulators, noisy intermediate quantum computers, and universal fault-tolerant computers in its entirety. And as I previously mentioned, I'm not an expert in the field, but this slide kind of shows you the breadth and the knowledge and the expertise that we have within the hub. So should there be something you'd want to know in relation to a certain aspect of quantum computing and its technology, contacting the hub would be a really good place to start. So I think I'm going to pause there to see if there are any questions. I don't know if there are any in the chat. No?
But if there are any, we'll encourage people to ask them now. We can just spend a couple of minutes for questions. I think Celia, Rupesh, I think we can move on for now. And
no problem. So I've just gone through what the hub does on the technical side, but the hub also has a role in the UK's uptake of these quantum computing technologies. And this is where I come in as part of the user engagement team. Our mission is to develop and nurture the UK's quantum computing ecosystem to ensure that there is prosperity for all, basically. I say basically, it's not an easy task at all. So the team is made up of Everett Gertsen, the Director for User Engagement, Rupesh Srivastava, who's with me today, and myself. And between the three of us, we have a combination of academic, industrial, and entrepreneurial experience that helps the hub reach its goals. For example, Everett has a background in engineering. He has a wealth of experience in product development and directorship roles in large and medium-sized companies. And he was the head of licensing and ventures for physical sciences at the University at the university's OUI, which is Oxford University Innovations, and they help the academics spin out some of their technologies and their methods. Rupesh has an extensive experience in working in startups, over 20 years in high-tech startups and technical consultancy. You might have seen Rupesh before because he's been around with the Hub one of the longest, so he's a very familiar face in the quantum space. And as I mentioned, I have a background in academic research, how it's developed, how it's funded, and particulars about research contracts. So between the three of us, I like to think we have a complementary trinity of skills. We wear many hats, as shown by the hexagons we have here, but essentially we engage with all parts of the value chain. And this means we are open to discussions with technology providers, researchers, system builders, and investors, and of course, end users like yourselves. And by doing this, having open conversations with everyone, we're able to have a good understanding of the quantum computing and simulation landscape. And we can provide unbiased suggestions or connections to support all of the players in the field in moving in a relatively coherent direction. And this direction is hopefully one which will help form a successful quantum industry. So an example of what we do, we might make introductions between organizations or groups of people who have similar objectives. They can share their views, their knowledge, pool resources. We can connect academics with a specific expertise to collaborate on industrial projects. And the intention of this would be to accelerate the impact of what we do or develop within the laboratory and push it out into the real world so that society can benefit from it as quickly as possible. User engagement also plays a role in disseminating information in the forms of reports, presentations like these ones, or workshops. We might provide information to government, which would allow them to make better formed decisions when it comes to quantum computing, quantum technology, and how we should move forwards with the quantum ecosystem. If there are any steps needed or needs to be taken to ensure that we remain a forerunner in this global quantum race. And we might facilitate an event where individuals from different backgrounds can share how they approach a challenge and share what methods they use to address a challenge. So, for example, the Hub recently hosted an event with the National Physical Laboratory and the KTN, the Knowledge Transfer Network. And the topic for discussion was standards in quantum technologies. So just to make a note, this event was inclusive of imaging, sensing, communications, as well as quantum computing. And in the event, there was a discussion with British Standards Institute to explain how standards are developed. We had industrial partners discuss why standards are important to them and how their business is designed and rely on how we think about standards and how they measure their products against specific metrics. And we also had academics share the challenges they face when they developed technology. And so all of these discussions together adds value to the sector. There's an appreciation of how, what, and why the processes are the way they are, and what challenges need to be addressed. It's all very, very tricky because each of these groups or individuals will be entering the room with different drivers, different aims, different strategies. And user engagement is there to facilitate these discussions, help ask the right questions, and try to get everyone to speak the same kind of language. Something else the team does is support funding applications. So, for example, we receive a few emails every year from early career researchers who are looking for endorsements for their fellowships, or looking for a direction maybe where we can direct them to a specific place where they might pick up a certain skill or gain a certain experience. Or we've been contacted most recently by individuals in academia and industry regarding the government's Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund and the applications that they wanted to submit. So we've been able to help there. We also have our own funding scheme within the Hub, and this is the Partnership Resource Fund. This fund is a dedicated pot of money that enables additional research, which we hadn't planned to do in our original bid for when we got the funding for the Hub. And it provides us the flexibility to react quickly to the dynamic quantum landscape. And it also allows us to fund groups or individuals outside the Hub who can contribute to what the Hub's trying to do. It's a competitive scheme with two streams, one strictly for academia and one which involves industrial partnerships. We've recently finished our 5th round of funding. So if you're interested in applying, please do get in touch. And the deadline for the next round is the 28th of June. Okay, so I can't actually see the chat box. I don't know if any questions have appeared so far. So I think this is a good place to just stop and see if there are any questions.
I just posted my own in the chat, so I will ask you out loud. So, okay, fantastic work and much needed work in terms of building networks and fostering the ecosystem. How can people, if there's people in the community, people in the event tonight, how can they engage with you?
Please send us an email. So our details will be at the end. We're very happy to pick up an email. We're happy to have a call, happy to have a video chat. In the real world, we might have invited you if you were local to come and have a coffee with us, and we'd like to have a discussion with you then. Rupesh, I don't remember what it was like in the real world, to be honest. So if you've got any more suggestions, feel free to pitch in. I think that covers most of it.
So, so in the complex ecosystem that you've seen, we are a first contact point. And we walk this landscape every single day, and we've been doing it for many years. So as Celia said, just get in touch, and we can have a conversation and help connect people. Wherever you're from, whether you're from government, whether you're from industry, whether you're from academia, whether you're a student, whether you're interested in education, whether you're looking for opportunities, if you're a VC in the investment community. So we handle it all, and we have the experience.
And I'm thinking about my space. I work in insurance. So if we were to do a workshop, for example, at Lloyd's of London, is it something you will be doing? Attend at industry-specific events, maybe not just quantum events, but events in other industries. People, they are starting to look at quantum, the impacts for their industries. Is that something you tend to do?
Yes, actually, we're very keen on reaching out to industries or sectors that aren't strictly quantum. Because of my background that I have working at Research Council, and I'm acquainted with some people who are in the energy sector. I've reached out to them to say, would this be of interest, etc., and they've responded positively. So we're happy to engage with people within the wider community. It doesn't strictly have to be quantum, because at some point quantum will have an effect on quite a lot of things in society. And I think it's best to start now.
It's to one of our innovations is to get the UK quantum ready, and that means different people. But when you're talking about industry, there's a training period as well. So by quantum readiness, we define it in 3 categories. There's entry, descent, and landing. So entry means what is it? What is it good for? Why do I have to care, and when? And descent is saying, okay, I understand a bit more now what quantum is. Got a few business use cases. How do I get started? And then landing is when you're seriously developing some applications. So we help with all of that, but we're part of a wider team as well. It's a big program, and thanks to Quantum London for doing their bit too.
Thank you, Rupesh and Celia. We've got a brilliant question in the chat from Brian Lenehan, who points out that there's a concerning lack of non-technical quantum workforce talent, for example, in sales, marketing, operations. And he's asking whether the hub addresses this component of the diverse workforce.
Yeah, so I'll be going into a little bit of that later, because we do understand that the workforce isn't just, you know, the typical engineer or scientist that's tinkering away in the lab. For myself and Rupesh, we're both physicists by training, but you could put me in the laboratory and I wouldn't even know where to start. I think I would just know not to touch any of the experiment. That would be my first reaction. But that doesn't mean that I'm not able to contribute to the quantum workforce in the same way that I'm doing now.
When in the UK, we have in the education system something called A-level between 16 to 18, and I did English, maths, and physics because I didn't know which way to go at university. And in my career in software engineering, in the startups I've worked at, some of the best programmers haven't come from computer science. They've come from art backgrounds or biology backgrounds or whatever. So it is really important to note that you can actually come from anywhere if you have the creativity, the imagination, the skills, and the ability to learn. That's really important to understand.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, do we want to move to the next portion maybe?
Yep, no problem. So going back to what user engagement does, the team also has to use their softer skills. So in parallel to all of the kind of the tasks, or the kind of harder things that we do that I've already described, things we do day to day, we have to keep in mind things like responsible research and innovation. Research can sometimes be controversial. You know, in the media, you can apply, the media might apply significant bias to what they publish, and there can be negative reactions from society. So a great example is GM foods, genetically modified foods. Scientists at the time around the globe, they were trying to solve really important issues such as sustainability or ending world hunger. But in the media, you could see things like mutant vegetables or something like that. And this makes it really, really challenging for society to get on board with GM foods or appreciate the potential benefits of the research. So we in the quantum community, we in the wider community, we have a responsibility in being transparent and addressing controversial issues appropriately and directly. And it will be this assurance that encourages the uptake of unfamiliar technologies such as quantum, and we'll see the benefits of society more quickly. So the benefits of quantum computing are massive. It spans across many sectors. You know, we've already seen quantum computers optimize traffic routing in the Volkswagen experiment that they did in Lisbon, where they used a D-wave and quantum annealer to calculate the fastest routes for public transit buses. And this is great. I mean, how much time would you save a year by traveling on a bus for a shorter duration? How much less backache would you get from having to sit on the bus? And how many tons of CO2 could we reduce if buses weren't stuck in traffic? So these are really important things to think of. These are really important things that we don't always see in the news. But what you do see, what things I might have seen in the news regarding quantum computing more recently is quantum computing, the end of Bitcoin today, or something drastic like that. And so whilst quantum computing could change the way we think about cryptocurrencies, we are yet to have the quantum technology on the scale that would be able to destroy the cryptocurrency market. So we have a responsibility to ensure that, excuse me, quantum computing and simulation is recognized for what it can do in the future, but also appreciate what its limitations are today. It is a technology that has lots of potential. It's deserving of investment, considering the substantial impacts that it could have on our everyday lives in the future. However, we need to be careful not to oversell quantum computing and allow an overinflation of hype. And so by trying to control all of this, this is what we call responsible research and innovation. So I'd just like to note, I've said loads of positive things, but obviously responsible research and innovation would also mean that we'd have to be clear and transparent about the negatives of some of the technologies that we provide as well. And I think those types of things are really important. Another aspect that requires softer skills is addressing the quantum workforce, and this is what we're here today to talk about. And how do we get the most appropriate skills for our ecosystem, and of course, in parallel to that, how do we generate an ecosystem that is as equitable, as diverse, and as inclusive as we can make it? So let's start by describing the challenges in developing a quantum workforce first. Much like cyber or AI, there's a demand for individuals with an appropriate or a specific set of skills, and this is no different for quantum. At the moment, we are seeing quantum startups typically founded by an individual or individuals who have an academic expertise in building a quantum system or designing quantum code, but they don't always have the expertise in pushing that technology out to market. So they might partner with someone else who has the business experience to help guide them. And this is really common. For example, Orca Computing Limited was founded by Professor Ian Walmsley, who was the director for NKIT, and Dr. Josh Nunn. And they have the technical expertise in photonics. But they partnered with Richard Murray and Christina Skoda from Richard has expertise in from Innovate UK, and they have the commercialization experience. So you see this quite a lot. You rarely get individuals like Dr. Ilana Wisby, who's the co-founder of Oxford Quantum Circuits. So I think she's amazing. She has a PhD in quantum physics. She actually used her expertise in designing technology for quantum computers, and she has a strong history of industrial experience. So how do we find more Ilanas in this world? How do we encourage more children or the earlier generations to do this? Well, there have been a lot of online games, online summer schools, and courses that are available online. Excuse me. And an example would be qplayandlearn.com have a game called Particle in a Box, and this guides the player through the basics of scientific quantum concepts. Actually, I've said that this is for the young generation, but I have an app on my phone called QLogic, and ashamedly, even though I am a physicist, I am really, really bad at coding. But this app has made a difference in how I view quantum coding and see how it works. And being an app, it's very patient with me, it doesn't answer back, it doesn't judge me. And I think there are loads of people who are looking to learn without being judged by something or someone. There's been a significant investment in summer schools and courses. Qubit by Qubit is a really good example of a quantum educator, where their programs are designed to prepare students on how they can apply quantum and quantum skills to real life applications. So this initiative is really neat because you don't know what you don't know. So it's actually really important to guide people, to let them know what quantum computing skills can lead to, so that each individual can develop the skills they need to be a broader kind of skilled person to reach their end goal. And I also think it's really important for them to understand how quantum computing fits in and how it can have an impact on society. QCS Summer Schools run by IBM. It's a 2-week program. It allows students to explore quantum algorithms and quantum circuits. And Microsoft has something similar, quantum computing course via Brilliant, that introduces individuals to quantum computing. The website states that by the end of the course, you'll have learned a myriad of quantum things, widgets, whilst remaining blissfully ignorant about the detailed quantum physics. And I think there's some value to that in the way that some people might think, oh, quantum physics, this is really difficult because this is, this is what you see on TV. Quantum physicists are a bit nerdy and it's really hard. But actually, when it's made accessible like this, it makes it a lot easier for the general population to enjoy it and to appreciate what it can do. So the fact that players such as IBM and Microsoft are investing in schemes like these is a promising indicator that the skill shortage is being recognized, and there are people thinking about how this shortage can be addressed. But if the majority of these initiatives are aimed at younger generations, then how do we get the skills and the experiences that we need now? So I don't think there's going to be a magic wand that suddenly summons an army of individuals with a perfect skill set. And companies are looking to adopt quantum technologies. They're starting to appreciate that there are a few individuals that come as a complete package. They are in a position where they know that they have to invest in their employees and they have to train them across a broad spectrum of things which would contribute to their quantum knowledge. Because quantum is expected to have an effect on a multitude of things in society, we are going to need people with skills from a multitude of backgrounds. So this goes back to one of the questions that was asked in the chat. This is a really good opportunity for free knowledge exchange. So an example would be, you might have a biologist who specializes in a specific protein that enables all sorts of scientific wizardry. And it would benefit from some chemical reaction X. These types of things in the laboratory can be really, really expensive for companies to keep testing to check if it works over and over again. So a thing to do in this case might be to connect the biologist with a chemist. You get two lots of expertise. And then another individual who has a quantum computing and simulation background so that they can contribute to solving their protein issue via quantum simulation. The key thing that I want to highlight here isn't the fact that they might in the end solve their protein problem. The key thing that I want to highlight is that they've been given the opportunity for knowledge exchange, and they understand the hows and specifically the whys behind the methodologies that they've used to address their problem. And this goes and works with non-technical people like myself. I'm part of the quantum workforce. My role in this landscape is to facilitate and educate in terms of quantum computing simulation. But with my background of working with academics and universities, presenting to industrial sectors with the most appropriate language doesn't always come naturally. It is a work in progress. So I'm learning to use specific language by pairing with people like Rupesh and Everett that help me understand industrial language, and then therefore I can present to audiences like yourself. So we're seeing a shift in company culture where people are employed for a specific skill set, and each individual employed has a different skill set, and the sum of all their different skills make a whole. And whole teams are encouraged to share the hows and the whys of what they do, and be more understanding and forgiving when an individual doesn't necessarily understand specifics of what they do. So it's, like I said, it's like a free knowledge exchange. So adding another layer to this, equality, diversity, and inclusion. When we add this layer, it becomes a very, very complex thing indeed. So from much of what I'm about to say crosses into many, if not all sectors. But I'll give some figures and then reiterate that reiterates the importance of ED&I. And then we can share what we do within the hub. So these figures were presented by the KTN a few months ago, and the sources are also listed on my slide. Companies are 19% more innovative when they are led and managed by senior teams with a greater than average level of diversity. Inclusive leadership can result in an 81% improvement on performance and productivity. Teams that are gender, age, and ethnically diverse are able to make better decisions up to 86% of the time. So clearly, when you're thinking about cultivating your quantum workforce, it's not just about the skills and the knowledge exchange, but you would get better productivity from a diverse group of individuals. You don't just want an individual that specializes in X. And as the world begins to find its feet in building quantum systems, ecosystems, we all have a responsibility to think about how we can integrate equality, diversity, and inclusion into everything that we do. So specifically, what is equality, diversity, and inclusion? I'm not a massive fan of reading off slides, but I'll go through this as it's written because I think it's really important. So equality means equality of opportunity. We must ensure that those who may be disadvantaged can get the tools that they need to access the same fair opportunities as their peers. Diversity is about recognizing, respecting, and celebrating each other's differences. A diverse environment is one with a wide range of backgrounds and mindsets, which allow for an empowered culture of creativity and innovation. And inclusion means creating an environment where everyone feels welcome and valued. An inclusive environment can only be created once we are more aware of our unconscious biases and we have learned how to manage them. So when we talk about ED&I, those who aren't that familiar with it, typically the first thing that comes to mind is gender inequality or gender equality, or disadvantaged ethnic minority groups. However, the Equality Act law actually covers a whole list of things that they call protected characteristics, and they are listed here. So while sex and race are two very important aspects of ED&I also encompasses people with disabilities, both visible and invisible. It covers individuals who have caring responsibilities, whether it be children or elderly family members or anyone else. And it's all about people of all ages and religions, and it includes how people identify in terms of their gender and their sexual orientation. Therefore, when we create our quantum workforce, excuse me, we need to be thinking about all of these things. We need to ensure that there's a space and a representation of diverse talents, which in turn will attract more diverse talent. Diversity needs to be visible in all roles within an organization. Individuals should have an equitable opportunity to advance themselves through an unbiased meritocracy, which will allow anyone with the right skills and experiences to get to the top. And organizations and institutions can encourage this behavior by being transparent. For example, sharing the criteria to which individuals are evaluated so that everyone can find a route for themselves to obtain a promotion, so they have an opportunity to. There's a responsibility about thinking about the type of language that's used. For example, when you're thinking about filling a vacancy, is the way that you've written your job description, does it lend itself to attracting a certain specification of candidates? There are tools out there, such as Alex, and I think I've listed it somewhere here. It's called alexjs.com, and that helps identify inconsiderate writing and provides an alternative to certain wording. So it's just a matter of looking, seeing what you can find out there and see what tools are available. And we also need to think about assigning accountability to leaders in order to strengthen the ED&I agenda. They need to be seen to take active steps to tackling these issues. For example, asking feedback from people in their organizations, providing ED&I training, providing training on unconscious bias, and monitoring how the culture changes. So with monitoring, it's actually a little bit of a gray area for me. Of course, there needs to be metrics to see if certain actions are working. But I don't believe this should be the absolute minimum. ED&I can't be treated as a box ticking exercise. And I believe that if leaders are really, really invested, they should look beyond the basic actions to widen the remit of what they can do. And the last point on the slide is to foster a friendly and friendly environment that everyone feels comfortable in. So it's up to everyone to be able to create this culture of belongingness and belonging and openness, working cultures that allow people to be themselves and have zero tolerance for discriminatory behavior, such as bullying and harassment. This helps to get a greater productivity level as the workforce is more comfortable. So all of the above things that I've said, they apply to every sector. They're not new, but I'd like to share some of the specific examples of what we're doing in the Hub to nurture our ED&I kind of in culture within our quantum workforce. So our ED&I plan is accessible to everyone. This ensures that we can be held accountable for integrating it into all of the things that we do. We strongly encourage everyone to contribute to the ED&I plan. We endeavour to have a 50-50 male-female ratio at our high-level decision-making boards, and thought is obviously given to the timing of when we have these meetings for caring responsibilities or religious holidays or the like. We invite and encourage earlier career researchers to present at events. And I think I might need to explain this a little bit more. So a typical event, virtual or in person, they tend to pack as many renowned speakers or experienced or high-level speakers into the agenda as they can to attract a greater audience. And this has almost become an expectation in events. But actually, there's nothing wrong with having a couple of key speakers and then opening the rest of the floor to early career researchers or less experienced individuals who want to gain some experience. And we've done this in a number of our events, and we've explained why we've made these decisions to the organising committee. It's like a light bulb moment. They're just thinking, oh, that's actually a really easy, good way of ensuring that, more individuals get the opportunity to gain the experiences that they need to work themselves up the ladder. And I'm really hoping that this culture change really takes off. I mean, I can see the benefits of it already. The other things we do, we think about the use of language, the use of Alex, like I mentioned before, and the more things that we move online. For example, we post loads of videos online, or we have videos when we do presentations like this. We include captions on each of our videos that we share with the community. So there will be individuals who are out there who are hard of hearing, and we want to make sure that they have access to what we want to share with them. Or, you might have a noisy background because you've got children and you just kind of want to be able to look after your kids whilst being able to read what's going on the screen. We in the Hub have accepted that ED&I will always be a work in progress. So that's also a really important thing, because we don't expect to change things overnight and we don't expect it to stay the same. So all of the things that we do here, they seem like little gestures, but they actually go a really long way. Despite all of these things being put in place, we as a Hub recognise that we can't do everything. And that's why when the UK develops its quantum workforce, we in the Hub want the community to be aware. We want the community to engage, and we want the community to be proactive. Every individual is different, and no matter, it doesn't matter how good everyone's intentions are, change can be challenging, and it's not always easy to integrate new ways of thinking into existing infrastructure. So we need to think about how we can encourage ED&I behaviours as well into what we do. There might also be things like external factors, or we might encounter difficulties that's out of our control. So if you take the example of the pandemic, For me, the pandemic has highlighted the digital divide. I'm in a very privileged position. Everyone that's invited and joining us here today, we have access to the internet. I've never really thought about some of the families, in the UK that don't have access to the internet. So when it comes to the quantum workforce, we might want to consider, how do we open doors for those in poverty, those who have brilliant minds that cannot access the quantum computer via the cloud and tinker around with it? How do we help them acquire the relevant skills that they need should they want to be part of the quantum workforce? And these questions aren't easy to answer. These types of challenges, they aren't easy, but there's only so much we can do within the hub to foster an equitable, diverse and inclusive environment. And this is why we do talks like these. We encourage ED&I because we want to work with partners and collaborators who are on the same page as us to further the ED&I agenda. And hopefully this will encourage those who aren't quite there yet to follow suit. So that's what we do within the hub, and this is what we like to encourage in the community. So with that, I'd just like to finish with Rupesh's nice and tidy tagline of quantum doesn't discriminate, so why should we?
Thank you. Thank you very much, both of you. And clearly, as you said, these are all small little things, but they are absolutely vital. And most importantly, this is just not something for the quantum world. That applies to every possible industry and business out there. And we have a few questions in the chat, but before we go to those, we would like to do an experiment. It's a bit of impromptu, so let's see how it goes. So we have Ilana from Oxford Quantum Circuits, and we'd like to see if we can bring her own camera. That will be an experiment that will go wrong, but let's try. And because we talked about the commercialization of quantum technologies, there will be something to maybe get a bit deeper on. Super important topic we try to look at Quantum London. But also, if she has any comments on the D&I aspect we touched on. And Ilana, I think you should have now a button where you can switch your camera on. Again, this is an experiment. Oh wow, it worked! I'm surprised.
Hi, Ilana.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly fine. Yeah.
Hello. I'm not dressed for the occasion. Apologies.
Again, this is impromptu, so thank you very much for trying it out with us.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to contribute where I can.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of topics maybe you can help us go a bit deeper. First one is the commercialization of quantum technologies. If you maybe give us some insight on that, and also in terms of the D&I, how do you apply those principles in your current venture?
Yeah, of course. So first of all, in terms of commercialization, I mean, there's a huge amount that you could say about that, but to kind of narrow it down, we're seeing pretty much every single market vertical now start to engage with quantum, particularly finance, pharma, anything to do with quantum simulation, so simulation of molecules and atoms. All of these industries now are more and more engaging directly either with quantum software companies that can help identify the problems and help them get quantum ready in that way. But also we're seeing them start to interact with the hardware itself. It is going to be a hugely disruptive technology. So these companies often want to get ahead so that they can start to get first mover advantage and be ready for that. In terms of the talent that they require, we're seeing companies now put together small R&D departments that are specifically focused on developing quantum algorithms internally. It is at the point now where we're on the cusp of moving to where you can start to have commercial impact. So right now we're still working with computers that are simulatable via supercomputers. So they're not doing things which are completely revolutionary yet, but But as we move and create systems that have higher numbers of qubits, higher quality of qubits, and ultimately overall higher system power, we are going to start to see within the next 3 to 5 years some of these early stage applications. That's not to say that the commercial market is not here today, because we are, interacting directly with end users, with customers, and particularly over the last year, I'd say there's been a significant uptick in engagement directly as more and more people are becoming quantum ready. Roop, do you want to add anything to that?
We have to remember that quantum is global.
Yes.
And so you'll see in the media, especially, references to a global reach. So many countries have their own national programs. The multinationals are operating in, across the globe. And one important point I want to stress is we're seeing a lot of enthusiasm, especially from middle school, high school, and above, interest in quantum. But what does that mean? And sort of a challenge back to Ilana is, what does that mean when she's hiring people?
Yeah.
Because I always say I can program a quantum computer. It's true. I run the IBM Quantum Hub at Oxford. But Ilana wouldn't hire me as a quantum programmer, and quite right too.
But I would hire you in other positions for sure, right? Because this leads then to the second point that was made earlier that I thought was super interesting, which is, we are not going to be successful. We are not going to build a quantum ecosystem or even a successful company unless we build a diverse and inclusive workforce, and also make sure that we're bringing in plenty of skills. So from industry, from academia, and combine them and upskill them together. There's a number of individuals within my, two within my executive team that before they came and worked for us, would never have known what a quantum computer was. One of them has a background, he's an incredibly successful entrepreneur in video gaming. Another one was a technical entrepreneur doing business development across, so it's a company called What Three Words that was working on data and identifying kind of specific locations through 3 simple words. We've also got project managers that have come from the automotive industry. All of these people have been absolutely transformational for our business, and also transformational for all of our quantum engineers that typically do have more academic backgrounds, and helping upskill them and teach them, and vice versa. So it has to come, like, success is only going to come from working together like that. In terms of diversity and inclusion, this is something that I am incredibly passionate about, and we're really trying to lead by example and as best we can with this within OQC. So you mentioned some fantastic resources. All of our CVs go through that to make sure that they are feminine in terms of wording, because we know that men will apply for opportunities that are languaged more female, it's called, but women won't apply for things that are languaged more male. So no ninjas in our specifications. We anonymize all of our CVs when they come in. We recognized early on that there was a lot of underlying bias, particularly coming from Oxford with red brick universities, and we wanted to make sure that we were really assessing talent and skills with eliminating as much as we could from that. We do have our team undertake many of the trainings, but we're still nowhere near where I want us to be, right? And this is with me as a woman, recognizing that I come from a very privileged background, and that I'm white, so I don't have a lot of the additional challenges. It's still, our team is still not where I want it to be, and there's still so much more that we can do. And this is where we then need to be interacting, and how do we pull that talent that's currently coming through from A levels, from grassroots levels, how can we pull that in and make sure that we inspire and are building a truly diverse workforce and building the future that we want to see, because the talent that is building this technology today will build technology that represents them, and we need that to be inclusive and global as we can.
Thank you very much. And because we heard what Rupesh and Celia are doing, but also we saw how this is happening in practice, and also some of the challenges that still are there. So I think it was great to combine the work on one side and then the evidence of what's happening. It was great. And Anna, I think you have a few closing words for us.
Thank you so much. But before I say my final thank yous to Rupesh and Celia and also Ilana, I just want to give our audience a reminder of some of the events that will be taking place at Quantum London. So on this Monday, we've got our 9th Quantum London Coding Community session coming up, where as a group together, we look at the textbook. It's suitable for both beginners and those who are more advanced. We've been looking into creating a few more focused groups and sessions around industry verticals so that we can have some more specific conversations around use cases and timelines. And with that in mind, we are going to be starting our Quantum and Finance series on Wednesday, the 19th of May, with the help of Esperanza Coenza Gomez. And so on the 19th, Esperanza and I will be speaking to Roman Oros and Enrique Lizaso Olmos from Multiverse Computing about the work that they do with companies from the financial services industry who want to gain an edge with quantum computing. So thank you for everybody who has joined us today, and that really just leaves me to say a massive thank you to both Celia and Rupesh for giving us such a great oversight of what the QCS Hub does, and also for initiating this excellent discussion and really important discussion around diversity and inclusion. And thank you so much for Ilana for popping up impromptu. Really appreciate your insight as well. So thank you everybody for your time, and good night.
Everyone.